In the year 63 BC, on the 23rd of September, in a modest house on the Palatine Hill of Rome, a child was born who would one day reshape the destiny of the Roman world. His name at birth was Gaius Octavius ***. Later, history would remember him as Augustus ***, the first emperor of Rome. But at the beginning, he was only the fragile infant of a respected but not overly powerful Roman family. His father, also named Gaius Octavius, came from a wealthy equestrian family in Velitri, a town not far from Rome. The elder Octavius had risen to the position of praetor, one of the high magistrates in the Roman Republic, but he died when his son was only 4 years old. His mother, Asia ***, was the niece of Julius Caesar, which gave the young boy a link to one of the most powerful men in Rome. This connection would change his life. From his earliest years, Octavian was raised in a household where ambition, family honor, and duty to Rome mattered more than comfort. He was not born into a ruling dynasty. He had to earn his place. The Republic was still alive, though weakened, and the Senate and people of Rome still believed they ruled themselves. But Rome was restless. Rival generals competed for glory, and civil wars had begun to tear the Republic apart. Octavian grew up in a world of uncertainty, where fortunes could rise and fall with a single battle. As a child, Octavian was not considered physically strong. Ancient writers often described him as delicate in health, prone to illness, and not particularly imposing in appearance. But he had sharp intelligence, a quick memory, and a calm seriousness that impressed his elders. His mother, Asia, guided his upbringing with strict Roman values. She instilled in him the importance of discipline, respect for tradition, and loyalty to family. He was also closely watched by his grandmother Julia, the sister of Julius Caesar, who made sure the boy was educated in both letters and Roman religion. Octavian studied Latin and Greek, learning the histories of earlier empires and the philosophies of great thinkers. He read about Alexander the Great, about the Persian kings, and about the discipline of old Roman leaders like Cincinnatus. These lessons left their mark. Though he was not a soldier by nature, he came to understand strategy, power, and the role of leadership. By his teenage years, he was already noticed by Julius Caesar. Caesar, though busy with his own rise to dominance, saw promise in the young boy. The Rome of Octavian's youth was not peaceful. The Republic had grown too large, stretching from Spain to the Near East, and its institutions could not easily govern such a vast empire. Ambitious generals, like ***Marius ****, Sulla and later ***Pompey and ***Caesar had shown that military strength often mattered more than laws. By the time Octavian was 10 years old, Caesar was rising as the most powerful man in Rome. His conquest of Gaul had brought immense wealth and loyalty from his soldiers. But it also brought tension with the Senate, which feared that Caesar was becoming a king in all but name. In 49 BC, when Octavian was 14, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, sparking civil war. The Senate and Pompey the Great opposed him, but Caesar defeated them. Octavian, too young to fight, watched from a distance as Rome plunged into chaos once again. This was the world that shaped him, a Rome where generals toppled laws, where loyalty was bought with gold and promises, and where the Republic's traditions were fading. Though his mother Asia cared for him deeply, the early death of his father left a mark on Octavian. The elder Gaius Octavius had been a man of reputation, respected for his honesty and leadership in the provinces. But without him, the family lacked a strong protector. Young Octavian had to rely more heavily on his mother's family ties, especially his connection to Julius Caesar. It was Caesar's fame and fortune that would eventually lift Octavian above the ordinary nobility of Rome. Still, in these years, he was not yet seen as destined for greatness. Few could have guessed that this quiet, thin boy would one day rule the Roman world. At the age of 12, Octavian made his first appearance in public life. He gave a funeral oration for his grandmother Julia, Caesar's sister. The speech, though delivered by a boy, impressed many who heard it. He spoke with clarity, dignity, and restraint, qualities that would later define his style as a leader. Unlike the fiery orators of the Forum, Octavian did not rely on loud passion. He spoke calmly, with careful words, as if weighing every sentence. This ability to appear composed and reasonable, even under pressure, would later become one of his greatest political weapons. By his mid-teens, Octavian had begun to attract the notice of Caesar more seriously. In 46 BC, when Caesar celebrated his triumphs after defeating Pompey's sons and his other enemies, Octavian was included in the ceremonies. This was not a small honor. It marked him as part of Caesar's inner circle, though still only a boy. Caesar had no legitimate sons. His only heir was his great-nephew, Octavian. Though no one yet knew it, Caesar was already considering him as his successor. In 45 BC, Caesar invited Octavian to join him on his campaigns in Spain. Despite his poor health, Octavian tried to go, showing determination beyond his years. His courage, even in weakness, impressed Caesar deeply. It showed that though he was not born a soldier, he was willing to endure hardship for family and duty. The turning point of Octavian's life came in 44 BC, when he was just 18 years old. On the Ides of March, Julius Caesar was assassinated in the Senate by Brutus, Cassius, and other senators who feared his growing power. Octavian was away from Rome at the time, studying in Apollonia, in Illyricum, modern-day Albania. When the news reached him, he faced a choice that would define his destiny. He could hide and live a quiet life, or he could claim his place as Caesar's heir. For in Caesar's will, revealed after his death, Octavian was named his adopted son and primary heir. Overnight, the young man became Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus and inherited not only. The story of Octavian cannot be told without Julius Caesar. Caesar was not only his great-uncle but also the man who gave him his path to greatness. Without Caesar's favor, Octavian would likely have remained a minor noble, known perhaps for wealth but not for empire. With Caesar's adoption, he became heir to the most powerful man in Rome. But this transformation did not happen suddenly. It was built step by step, through years of careful observation, quiet loyalty, and unexpected events. By the time Octavian was a teenager, Julius Caesar had become the master of Rome. After years of war in Gaul and his eventual victory over Pompey, Caesar ruled almost without rival. The Senate still existed, but its power was overshadowed by his. Caesar was popular with the Roman people and beloved by his soldiers, but many senators feared he intended to make himself king. The old republic resisted one-man rule, even though its system was already failing. It was in this climate that Caesar began to notice his young great-nephew. Octavian was quiet, studious, and not a soldier by nature. Yet he displayed discipline, intelligence, and determination even when frail in health. Caesar admired these qualities. He valued loyalty above all things, and he sensed that Octavian, though young, possessed a loyalty unshaken by ambition. In 46 BC, Caesar prepared to lead a campaign in Spain against the remaining forces of Pompey's sons. Octavian, then around 17 years old, wanted to join him. Many thought it unwise. Octavian was not strong, often sick, and had little military experience. But Caesar allowed him to accompany the march. The journey was hard, filled with long days and rough conditions. Octavian's health suffered, but he refused to turn back. Caesar noticed his determination. Even when exhausted, Octavian pushed forward, unwilling to abandon the campaign. Though he did not fight in the battles, his presence impressed Caesar deeply. He saw in Octavian not physical strength, but mental endurance. That mattered more to Caesar, who knew that ruling Rome required patience, persistence, and resilience. When the war in Spain was won, Caesar returned to Rome in triumph. His victories were celebrated with games, feasts, and parades. Octavian was present in these ceremonies, walking alongside Caesar's family. This moment placed him before the eyes of Rome. Though still only a youth, he stood at the side of the most powerful man in the world. The Roman people noticed. The senators noticed. Octavian was no longer invisible, but his role remained small. No one yet suspected that Caesar intended to make him his heir. In 44 BC, Caesar began planning new campaigns. He wished to march east, to conquer Parthia and beyond, to bring Rome new wealth and glory. Octavian, then studying in Apollonia in Greece, was invited to join him again. Caesar was grooming him, quietly preparing him for a larger role. Some historians believe Caesar saw in Octavian the calm discipline needed to continue his legacy. Others suggest Caesar adopted him only because he had no sons of his own. Whatever the reason, Octavian was already marked for a greater destiny. But destiny often moves in ways no one expects. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated in the Senate house by Brutus, Cassius, and their fellow conspirators. They struck him 23 times, ending the life of the man who had reshaped Rome. Octavian was not in Rome. He was still in Apollonia when the news reached him. At first, he hesitated. He was only 18, without soldiers or office. Many urged him to remain away from Rome to avoid the danger. The assassins claimed they had freed the Republic, but in truth, chaos followed Caesar's death. But Octavian made his choice. He would return. He would claim what was his. When Caesar's will was read in Rome, it shocked many. In it, Caesar named Octavian his adopted son and heir. Octavian was to take his name, Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus and inherit his immense fortune. This adoption was more than a legal formality. In Rome, adoption was considered as binding as blood. Octavian was now Caesar's son, his chosen successor. Many scoffed at the idea. He was young, frail, and inexperienced. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general, dismissed him. The Senate ignored him. But Octavian did not falter. He began gathering support quietly, step by step. When he landed in Italy, Octavian took on Caesar's name immediately. He presented himself not just as Octavian, but as Caesar's heir. This was bold. It risked the anger of Antony, who sought to inherit Caesar's power for himself. Octavian moved carefully. He visited Caesar's veterans, men who had served under him in Gaul and civil wars. He promised them rewards, using the wealth he inherited. Slowly, their loyalty shifted toward him. To them, he was not a boy, he was Caesar reborn. At the same time, he courted the Senate, presenting himself as respectful and loyal to the Republic. Where Antony bullied the Senate, March of 44 BC was a month that would forever alter the destiny of Rome. On the Ides of March, Julius Caesar, the man who had dominated Rome's politics, was brutally assassinated in the Senate House. His killers, led by Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus, believed they were saving the Republic from a would-be king. In truth, they plunged Rome into uncertainty, chaos, and civil war. For Octavian Caesar's adopted son and heir, the news arrived far from the bustling streets of Rome. He was in Apollonia in the province of Illyricum, preparing to continue his studies. The boy who had been shy, frail, and overlooked now faced a world where survival required wit, courage, and careful planning. The messenger arrived swiftly, galloping across hills and rivers, bringing news that no young man wanted to hear. Octavian sat in the villa, reading scrolls, when a servant entered, bowing low. The words fell slowly at first, as if they might be mistaken. Your great-uncle, Caesar, has been murdered in Rome. Octavian's heart sank. Rome, the city he had always observed from the calm heights of his villa, had become a battlefield of words, power, and blood. The streets he had walked as a child were now dangerous. Allies had fallen, enemies had risen, and in the midst of this, he alone carried the name of Caesar. Though only 18, Octavian did not panic. He had been prepared, in a subtle way, for moments such as this. Caesar had trained him in thought, in patience, in the careful observation of people. Now, he would apply these lessons not in study halls or courtyards, but in the raw arena of politics and war. Octavian quickly gathered what he needed for the journey. He traveled with a small group of loyal servants and advisors, moving swiftly but cautiously toward Italy. The roads were dangerous. Assassins, opportunists, and rival generals roamed the countryside, seeking advantage in Caesar's absence. The journey itself tested his resolve. Illness threatened to slow him, but he pressed on, determined to claim his position as Caesar's heir. Every step toward Rome reminded him that the city was no longer a place of calm civic life but a battlefield of political survival. When Octavian finally reached the gates of Rome, he found the city tense and uneasy. The Senate debated furiously over Caesar's death. Senators feared reprisals from loyalists. Citizens murmured in the streets, unsure who would lead them. Caesar's veterans, once disciplined soldiers, awaited orders, uncertain if their loyalty would be rewarded or punished. Mark Antony, Caesar's trusted general, had taken a leading role in controlling the city. He had authority, armies, and experience. Many in Rome expected Octavian, young and inexperienced, to bow to Antony's dominance. But Octavian had a secret advantage: Caesar's will. The adoption named him as the sole heir. Wealth, power, and legitimacy flowed directly from Caesar to him. The reading of the will was a moment of drama and careful calculation. Senators gathered in the forum, citizens crowded the streets, and Antony oversaw the proceedings. Octavian stood quietly, holding himself composed, the calming contrast to the tension surrounding him. When the will was read, it declared that Octavian would take Caesar's name, inherit his fortune, and continue his legacy. To the young man, the words carried both promise and burden. He was now more than a boy. He was a symbol of Caesar's continuing authority. Octavian's presence, calm but firm, impressed some and worried others. The Senate debated, Mark Antony glared, but the people of Rome, hearing that Caesar's chosen heir was present, began to rally quietly around him. Octavian understood that inheritance alone was not enough. He needed the support of Caesar's veterans, the loyalty of allies, and a careful balance with the Senate. He first sought the veterans, bringing them coins, gifts, and the promise of rewards. These men had followed Caesar across Gaul and the civil wars. They recognized the boy's name, and now, seeing him act with courage and calm determination, they began to pledge their loyalty. At the same time, Octavian presented himself to the Senate as a defender of Caesar's legacy, not a rebel seeking personal power. He spoke with respect and humility, contrasting with Antony, whose ambition and brashness sometimes alienated senators. Step by step, Octavian carved a path between Antony and the Senate, positioning himself as the legitimate heir and a man of patience and foresight. Mark Antony, confident in his power, underestimated the young Octavian. He viewed the boy as fragile, inexperienced, and politically weak. Yet, Antony's arrogance became Octavian's opportunity. By acting carefully and strategically, Octavian began to draw veterans, supporters, and even some senators to his side. Octavian never acted rashly. He avoided direct confrontation with Antony at first, instead consolidating his position quietly. Every gift to a soldier, every respectful word to a senator, every public appearance in Caesar's name strengthened his claim. By the end of the year, Octavian had become a significant player. Though still young, his calm intelligence and careful planning allowed him to navigate a city filled with danger, betrayal, and uncertainty. As tensions escalated, Octavian realized that survival in Rome required alliances, even with former rivals. In 43 BC, he joined forces with Mark Antony and Marcus Lepidus, forming what became known as the ***2 triumvirate ***. This alliance, though uneasy, gave Octavian legitimacy and military backing. Together, the three men would move against Caesar's assassins, Brutus, Cassius, and their supporters, ultimately seeking to avenge Caesar's death and consolidate control over the Republic. Octavian's role was subtle but crucial. He learned to negotiate. After Caesar's assassination, the Roman world was thrown into chaos. Octavian, the young heir, had carefully built his position in Rome, winning support from Caesar's veterans, gaining favor with the people, and navigating the dangerous ambitions of Mark Antony and the Senate. Yet, political maneuvering alone could not secure Rome's future. The real challenge came on the battlefield. The conspirators who had murdered Caesar, ***Brutus and Cassius ***, had raised armies in the eastern provinces. They controlled territories in Greece and Macedonia, and they intended to oppose the forces loyal to Caesar's legacy. For Octavian, now barely 19, this meant he would face his first true test, war. Before the battle, Octavian worked closely with Mark Antony and Marcus Lepidus. The alliance known as the ***2 triumvirate *** had been formed to avenge Caesar's death and to secure power over Rome and its provinces. Octavian, still young and inexperienced in direct command, observed Antony carefully. Antony had years of military experience and a commanding presence. Octavian's role, initially, was to learn, to gain the trust of the soldiers, and to represent Caesar's heir on the battlefield. The army was assembled in Italy and moved toward Macedonia. Soldiers, veterans of Caesar's campaigns, marched in disciplined formations. Octavian rode among them, calm and attentive. Though he had not yet led men in combat, his presence inspired loyalty. He was Caesar's chosen heir, and they trusted him to carry forward the legacy. The journey to Macedonia was long and grueling. The army crossed rivers, climbed hills, and marched through narrow passes. Along the way, Octavian observed the strength and discipline of Roman soldiers, their training, and their loyalty to the name of Caesar. At night, he inspected the camps quietly, listening to reports from centurions and strategists. He asked questions carefully, learning the principles of battlefield command. Antony noticed his intelligence and calm demeanor, and while he did not yet fully trust the young heir, he began to respect him. The soldiers, too, began to see Octavian not merely as a boy or a political symbol, but as someone who could represent them, someone who understood honor and duty. Across the plain of Philippi, Brutus and Cassius gathered their forces. They were experienced commanders, seasoned in the political and military conflicts of the Republic. Brutus was cautious and philosophical, while Cassius was aggressive and ambitious. Together, they hoped to crush the forces loyal to Caesar, restore the Republic, and eliminate Caesar's heir. Octavian studied the reports carefully. He understood that the battle would not only decide territory but also the legitimacy of his claim. If the conspirators won, his life would be at risk, and Rome could descend into a prolonged civil war. The armies clashed in 42 BC. The *** first engagement ***, often called the *** Battle of Philippi, First Battle ***, saw Antony facing Brutus and Octavian confronting Cassius. Octavian's troops advanced steadily. Though Octavian himself had little combat experience, he maintained calm composure. He rode among his men, offering reassurance, observing their morale, and ensuring order. Cassius, commanding the opposite army, launched fierce attacks. The fighting was brutal. The sound of swords clashing and shields breaking filled the air. Despite being young, Octavian's presence steadied the soldiers. He did not show fear. He did not give orders rashly. He observed, calculated, and acted when necessary. Cassius, misreading the battlefield, believed his flank had been overwhelmed and ordered his forces to retreat. Believing the battle lost, he committed suicide. Octavian learned a harsh lesson that day. Even the most skilled commander could be undone by misjudgment and despair. While Cassius fell, Brutus remained on the field. The *** forces loyal to Caesar *** had not yet achieved total victory. Antony and Octavian consolidated their armies, preparing for a final confrontation. Brutus, though defeated in part, still commanded a disciplined and motivated force. Octavian, alongside Antony, coordinated the strategy. He learned quickly how to deploy reserves, reinforce weak points, and motivate soldiers who were weary from combat. Though he did not yet command independently, his input was valued and he began to gain confidence among officers. A few weeks later, the ** Second Battle of Philippi ** took place. This engagement was decisive. Antony faced Brutus directly, while Octavian commanded troops on the flank, supporting strategic positions. The fighting was intense but methodical. Octavian observed the ebb and flow of the battle, noting how discipline and morale could determine outcomes as much as courage. Roman legions clashed in tight formations, standards raised high, banners fluttering. Octavian stayed at the edge of the front lines, ready to intervene, ready to inspire, but always maintaining composure. Brutus, realizing his cause was lost, committed suicide. The remaining forces of the conspirators scattered or surrendered. Rome's fate, and Octavian's path to power, had been secured. Though young, Octavian had seen his first major campaign. He had survived, gained experience, and strengthened his reputation. He had also witnessed the fragility of life and power. Cassius' suicide was a grim reminder that despair could undo even the strongest. With Brutus and Cassius gone, Octavian and Antony divided control over Rome's territories. Octavian returned to Italy, now recognized not only as Caesar's heir but also as a competent leader. Though Antony remained a senior figure, Octavian's reputation had grown among soldiers and citizens alike. The triumph at Philippi marked the transition from mere political maneuvering to real authority. Octavian was no longer just a boy inheriting Caesar's name. He was a *** proven actor in Rome's military and political stage ***. Thus ended the first major military test of Octavian's life. He had stepped into a world of swords, strategy, and mortality. From this moment on, Rome would no longer see him as fragile or inexperienced. The Battle of Philippi secured the path for Octavian's rise, teaching him discipline, patience, and the value of alliances. It was a step that would eventually lead him to reshape Rome itself, bringing stability and paving the way for the age of the *** Roman Empire ***. Rome had survived the conspirators, and Octavian, the young heir, had survived the battlefield. His journey toward ultimate power was only beginning. After the decisive victory at Philippi, Octavian and Mark Antony found themselves in a Rome transformed. The conspirators who had murdered Caesar were gone, but the city remained politically volatile. Octavian had proven himself on the battlefield, yet true mastery of Rome required more than military skill. It demanded strategy, alliances, and a keen understanding of human ambition. For Octavian, the next challenge was Mark Antony himself. Antony had been Caesar's right-hand man, a seasoned general and politician. Unlike Octavian, he had the loyalty of experienced soldiers and the respect of the Roman elite. Yet Antony's temperament, prone to bold gestures and indulgence, created openings that Octavian, cautious and calculating, could exploit. Following Philippi, the second triumvirate divided the Roman territories. Antony took the east, managing provinces and armies stretching from Macedonia to Egypt. Octavian controlled the west, including Italy, Spain, and Gaul. Lepidus received Africa, though his influence would soon wane. The division was practical but fraught with tension. Both Antony and Octavian were ambitious, aware that ultimate power in Rome could only belong to one. The alliance that had defeated Brutus and Cassius was now balanced on a knife's edge. Octavian, ever patient, understood that direct confrontation with Antony would be premature. He focused on consolidating his own territories, strengthening his control over Rome, and building loyalty among soldiers and citizens. Every act was calculated. He restored grain distributions, repaired infrastructure, and publicly honored Caesar's memory. Meanwhile, Antony's attention turned eastward, particularly to Egypt and the Queen Cleopatra. Egypt was rich, strategically vital, and politically complex. Cleopatra had ambitions of her own. She sought to restore Egypt's power and influence, and Antony, captivated by her presence, allowed political affairs to intertwine with personal alliances. Octavian observed these developments from afar. He did not interfere directly but understood the implications. Antony's preoccupation with Egypt could weaken his political and military standing. Rome required stability, and Antony's indulgence offered Octavian opportunities to strengthen his legitimacy in the West. By this time, Octavian had learned a crucial lesson. Rome could be influenced as much by words as by swords. He began a campaign of public relations, presenting Antony as a man distracted by foreign lands and foreign love, while he, Octavian, embodied Roman tradition, discipline, and loyalty to Caesar. Writers, orators, and poets were engaged to shape public opinion. Octavian's subtle propaganda emphasized his Roman roots, respect for the Senate, and commitment to the people. Antony, by contrast, was painted as indulgent, swayed by Cleopatra, and increasingly detached from Roman values. This battle of perception was nearly as important as any military engagement. Citizens and soldiers alike began to question Antony's priorities, while Octavian's reputation as a cautious, competent, and trustworthy leader grew. Octavian also understood the power of family alliances. He arranged strategic marriages within his family to strengthen his political position. His sister Octavia was married to Antony, a union designed to cement the triumvirate and bring stability. Octavia proved to be a stabilizing influence. She managed Antony's household and attempted to temper his more reckless tendencies. Yet even her presence could not fully restrain Antony's ambitions or his alliance with Cleopatra. Octavian, meanwhile, maintained a public image of modesty and discipline. While Antony's reputation grew more flamboyant, Octavian's careful attention to Roman traditions and virtues earned him enduring loyalty. Despite outward appearances of cooperation, tensions between Octavian and Antony grew. Antony's actions in the East, particularly his embrace of Cleopatra, fueled rumors and mistrust. Octavian capitalized on these suspicions, subtly undermining Antony's reputation in Rome while continuing to present himself as Caesar's loyal heir. The West and East were now politically distinct spheres, yet the shadow of future conflict loomed. Every decision, every alliance, every public appearance mattered. Octavian knew that one day the balance of power would shift, and he must be prepared to seize it. The rivalry between Octavian and Antony was not immediate war. It was a contest of influence, strategy, and perception. Octavian's careful patience contrasted with Antony's impulsive ambition. Rome watched, consciously or unconsciously, as two powerful men maneuvered, testing the limits of loyalty, power, and public opinion. Octavian strengthened his political base in Italy. He distributed land to veterans, secured the loyalty of cities, and aligned with influential senators. Every step increased his authority, while Antony, consumed by Egypt and personal ambitions, slowly gave Octavian an advantage in Rome itself. The rivalry was subtle but decisive. Octavian was learning how to win not by force alone, but by *** strategy, patience, and manipulation of perception ***. He was preparing for the day when military action would become inevitable. After years of careful alliance and quiet maneuvering, Octavian faced the most delicate and decisive phase of his rise, the struggle against Mark Antony. The battlefield was no longer only in armies or provinces, but in hearts, minds, and the perception of Rome itself. Octavian had already strengthened his position in the West. He controlled Italy, Spain, and Gaul. He had the loyalty of Caesar's veterans and the respect of the Senate. Antony, in contrast, had become increasingly associated with Egypt and Cleopatra, enjoying wealth and influence but alienating traditional Roman elites. Octavian knew that defeating Antony would require more than force, it would require careful manipulation of public opinion. The fate of Rome depended on how the citizens, soldiers, and senators perceived the two men. Stories and rumors began to spread throughout Rome. Antony's time in Egypt, his lavish gifts from Cleopatra, and his apparent willingness to prioritize foreign interests over Roman tradition caused unease. Octavian observed these sentiments carefully. Rather than act rashly, he began to craft a strategy that would exploit Antony's vulnerabilities without directly attacking him initially. His speeches emphasized loyalty to Rome, respect for Caesar's memory, and commitment to traditional values. Through writers, poets, and orators, Octavian ensured that Antony was increasingly seen as a foreign-influenced figure. Rome was proud of its traditions, and Antony's actions in Egypt were portrayed as a betrayal of those values. The Senate, wary of Antony's growing power and distracted by his Eastern affairs, began to gravitate toward Octavian. They valued his careful demeanor and respect for Roman institutions. Octavian acted with patience. He did not demand authority or attack Antony openly. Instead, he emphasized restoration of order and protection of the Republic, while Antony's actions appeared indulgent and reckless. Octavian understood that perception could outweigh actual power. He carefully timed public speeches, distributed Caesar's wealth to veterans and citizens, and aligned himself with influential senators. He also strengthened his military presence. While Antony commanded large armies in the east, Octavian ensured that the west remained loyal, well-supplied, and ready for action. His careful balance of political influence and military preparedness created a formidable base from which he could challenge Antony decisively. Cleopatra's presence in Antony's life was both a political and military liability. Octavian subtly emphasized Antony's foreign entanglements, suggesting that Antony's decisions were influenced by a foreign queen rather than Rome's best interests. Propaganda became Octavian's weapon. Coins, speeches, public ceremonies, and even rumors worked in unison. Antony was portrayed as a man more concerned with love and wealth than with the loyalty of Rome. The citizens, once ambivalent, began to question Antony's judgment. Veterans, while loyal to Caesar's legacy, started to respect Octavian's discipline, caution, and commitment to Roman values. In 32 BC, tensions reached a critical point. Antony's will, revealing provisions for his children with Cleopatra and promises of wealth to Egypt, was made public. This scandalized Rome. Octavian seized the moment. He presented Antony's actions as a betrayal, claiming that Antony intended to give Roman lands and power to a foreign queen. The Senate, swayed by Octavian's careful framing, declared Antony a public enemy of Rome. The propaganda war had succeeded. Antony, once a powerful general with broad support, was now politically vulnerable. With public opinion firmly on his side, Octavian moved to consolidate military support. Soldiers in the West pledged loyalty to him, motivated by both Caesar's legacy and Octavian's careful cultivation of respect and rewards. Octavian also continued to communicate with allies across the Mediterranean, ensuring that Antony could not gather reinforcements from unexpected quarters. The stage was set for confrontation. Unlike Philippi, where Octavian fought as part of a triumvirate, he was now the orchestrator of both political and military strategy. In 31 BC, the inevitable confrontation arrived. The Battle of Actium, a naval engagement off the coast of Greece. Octavian commanded a well-prepared fleet, led by his trusted Admiral Agrippa. Antony and Cleopatra commanded a combined Roman-Egyptian fleet, but their forces were divided in loyalty and morale. Octavian's strategy emphasized patience and discipline. He allowed Antony's fleet to overextend. Cutting off supplies, the sun rose over the Tiber, casting golden light on the city of Rome, as Octavian rode steadily through the gates he had once passed as a boy. The streets were alive with whispers and cheers, citizens lining the roads to glimpse the young man who had returned not as a son of Caesar, but as a master of Rome itself. The years of war, of alliances and battles, of careful observation and silent planning had brought him to this moment. Every step of the journey, every measured decision, had led to the city that now stretched before him in all its marble glory. He noticed the contrasts of Rome as he entered the Forum. Temples gleamed in the morning light, yet the shadows of recent strife lingered. Streets bore the faint marks of hurried marches, the echoes of past conflicts. Soldiers in crisp formations moved through the city, veterans of campaigns that had tested loyalty and courage. They watched him with disciplined respect, their eyes following every motion, their hearts knowing that the man before them had navigated the treacherous tides of politics and battle alike. Octavian did not ride with grandeur or fanfare. His armor was simple, his demeanor calm, and his eyes took in the city as one who understood its people and its weight. Citizens, some curious, some reverent, whispered as he passed. The air was charged with anticipation, yet Octavian remained composed, every gesture deliberate, every glance measured. He had learned that the image of a leader was as important as command itself. In the Senate, the atmosphere was charged with quiet respect. Octavian stood before the assembled senators, his posture upright, his voice steady. He spoke of Rome's restoration, of honoring Caesar's memory, and of returning stability to a city weary of uncertainty. His words carried neither arrogance nor excess. They were measured, carrying the authority of someone who had seen war and survived it, who had studied the follies of others and learned from them. Senators listened, noting the quiet confidence in the young man who had once seemed so fragile. Outside, the citizens responded in kind. Grain distributions were arranged with care, public ceremonies proceeded with dignity, and Octavian personally observed the repair of temples and aqueducts. He walked among the people, greeting citizens, listening to their concerns, acknowledging veterans, and showing the patience that had become his signature. Every action reinforced the image of a leader who was present, deliberate, and attuned to the pulse of Rome. His sister, Octavia, moved among the elite and the common folk alike, her grace and poise complementing his authority. Together, they formed the face of a Rome reborn, a city guided by discipline, wisdom, and a reverence for tradition. Augustus, as he would now be known, had not taken the title lightly. It carried weight, subtlety, and expectation. He accepted honors and ceremonies with calm dignity, never flaunting power, but letting it be understood that the Republic's future rested in his hands. The city itself seemed to respond to his presence. Markets reopened with vibrant activity, temples rang with prayer, and the hum of trade carried on the Tiber's waters. Soldiers who had once feared the uncertainty of shifting allegiances now marched with pride. Veterans who had fought at Philippi, at Actium, now recognized that the boy who had survived the turmoil was the man who would safeguard their honor and Rome's legacy. Augustus walked through the Palatine Hill in the late afternoon, gazing over the sprawling city. The gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming gardens, the distant clang of hammers repairing the Forum, and the murmurs of citizens going about their lives. He felt the weight of history pressing upon him, yet it was a weight he bore with measured grace. Every decision he had made, the alliances, the campaigns, the careful manipulation of public perception, had led to this city at peace, this empire at the brink of a new era. Evenings were quieter. In his chambers, Augustus reviewed reports from governors and legates, listened to the counsel of trusted advisors, and contemplated the future of Rome. He allowed himself moments of reflection, remembering the villa where he had studied scrolls as a boy, the battlefields where he had first tested his courage, and the countless nights spent planning in the dim glow of oil lamps. All those years, all those trials, had led to this calm, this authority that radiated without the need for spectacle. Rome, under Augustus, was no longer merely a city, it was a symbol. It was a living testament to patience, strategy, and the careful merging of tradition and innovation. Citizens moved through the streets with confidence, soldiers upheld the honor of their legions. The morning sun spilled its golden light over Rome as Augustus walked along the Palatine Hill, gazing down at the city that had become the heart of his world. The streets below teemed with life, vendors arranging their goods, children chasing each other across courtyards, and soldiers moving with the disciplined precision that had become the mark of his leadership. Rome was alive, yet fragile, still recovering from years of civil war, and every sound, every movement reminded Augustus of the care his city demanded. He descended to the Forum, where citizens had already begun to gather, their eyes following him with curiosity and respect. Augustus greeted them with a calm nod, moving among them with a quiet dignity. He paused to speak with a veteran of his campaigns, listening intently to tales of loyalty and hardship, promising support and land for those who had endured the chaos of years past. The veteran's eyes lit with trust, knowing that the boy who had once observed the campaigns from afar had become a man of action and wisdom. Throughout the city, Augustus oversaw the repair of aqueducts and roads, inspecting the arches and channels with meticulous attention. He spoke with engineers and workers, offering guidance while encouraging their skill and ingenuity. Marble temples were restored to their former glory, and ceremonies were conducted with reverence, reminding citizens of Rome's enduring traditions. Every detail, from the flow of water to the layout of the streets, mattered to him, for he understood that stability came from both governance and careful observation of everyday life. In the quiet of the afternoon, Augustus wandered through the libraries and workshops of Rome, where scholars and artisans labored to preserve knowledge and create beauty. He encouraged the creation of literature and art that celebrated Rome's achievements, and he listened to philosophers discuss the principles of governance and virtue. His presence inspired respect and diligence, and he often stayed late, reading reports from the provinces, considering the needs of distant territories, and planning improvements that would bind the empire together. Even as he nurtured culture, Augustus remained vigilant of Rome's borders. Soldiers trained along the frontiers, fortifications were strengthened, and roads and ports were built to ensure the rapid movement of troops and trade. Augustus sometimes rode alongside his legions, observing their discipline and readiness, understanding that the security of the empire depended not only on his authority in the city but on the loyalty and preparedness of those who guarded its edges. The city's life flowed around him. Merchants traded, children played, and citizens spoke of peace in whispers and laughter. Augustus enacted laws to encourage family stability and responsible citizenship, presenting guidance with the weight of example rather than coercion. He listened patiently to petitions, made decisions that balanced fairness and necessity, and allowed the citizens to feel both the presence and wisdom of their ruler. As dusk fell, Augustus returned to the Palatine Hill, walking slowly through the corridors of his palace. Lanterns lit the marble halls, and the soft glow reflected off frescoes depicting Rome's past triumphs. Outside, the Tiber shimmered in the fading light, and the city exhaled a collective calm. Augustus reviewed reports from distant governors and legates, planning the next steps in administration, military readiness, and civic improvements. The empire was vast, yet in every province, in every city, he sought to weave the threads of loyalty, culture, and order into a tapestry of enduring stability. He paused at a balcony overlooking the Forum, observing the citizens settling into the quiet of night, soldiers patrolling with steady rhythm, and lanterns flickering along the streets. The boy who had once studied scrolls in dim candlelight, who had learned from the victories and mistakes of others, had become the architect of an empire. Rome was no longer merely a city. It was a living entity, nurtured through strategy, vigilance, and care. Augustus felt the weight of responsibility, yet also the satisfaction of achievement, knowing that his actions would shape generations to come. In the silence of the evening, Augustus stood alone, watching the city breathe, reflecting on the path that had led him from observer to ruler. The empire was secure, the sun rose gently over Rome, bathing the city in warm light as Augustus began another day of quiet authority. The city was alive with the rhythm of commerce and daily life, yet beneath the surface of activity, the stability and order he had fought so carefully to establish remained firm. Augustus moved through the streets with measured attention, noting the interactions of citizens, soldiers, and officials, absorbing every detail that might influence the prosperity of the empire. In the early hours, he visited the Forum, where senators and magistrates had begun their day. Augustus greeted each with subtle nods and quiet words, establishing a tone of respect and calm authority. The Senate, once wary of his rise, now functioned in harmony with his vision. Augustus carefully balanced their power with his own, ensuring that the city's government appeared traditional while he quietly guided decisions behind the scenes. The city itself bore the marks of his reforms. Roads had been repaired and extended, allowing trade and movement to flourish. Aqueducts delivered fresh water to every district, fountains and baths were restored, and public buildings reflected both functionality and grandeur. Augustus personally inspected these projects, speaking with architects and workers, listening to suggestions, and ensuring that every detail aligned with his vision of a prosperous Rome. Families and citizens were at the heart of his attention. Augustus enacted laws designed to encourage marriage, family life, and social responsibility, understanding that the strength of the empire depended on the stability of its households. He visited markets and neighborhoods, observing the interactions of citizens and ensuring that grain distributions were fair and steady. Children played in courtyards, merchants haggled over prices, and the hum of everyday life filled the streets. Augustus walked among them with a calm demeanor, offering reassurance through presence rather than decree. Cultural life thrived under his watch. Augustus often visited libraries and workshops, where scholars and artists labored to preserve knowledge and celebrate Roman achievement. He commissioned poets to write of Rome's renewal, philosophers to consider virtue and governance, and artisans to create works that would endure for generations. The city's architecture grew not merely for utility but for beauty, reinforcing the pride and identity of Rome's citizens. In quieter hours, Augustus would retreat to his chambers to study reports from governors and legates stationed across the provinces. Each letter and document reminded him of the delicate balance he had to maintain. Some regions were newly pacified, others distant and unruly, and each required a combination of diplomacy, military presence, and subtle guidance. Augustus considered every detail carefully, knowing that neglect in even one corner of the empire could ripple outward and threaten the stability he had so carefully constructed. Evenings were often spent walking along the Palatine Hill, observing the city as lanterns were lit and the Tiber reflected the fading light. Soldiers patrolled the streets with calm diligence, and citizens moved peacefully through marketplaces and forums. Augustus reflected on the lessons of his past, the mistakes of Antony, the ambitions of Caesar, and his own early observations as a boy. Each memory informed his decisions, teaching patience, discretion, and foresight. The arts and culture were intertwined with governance in Augustus' mind. Public festivals celebrated not only religious rites but also Rome's history and achievements. Gladiatorial games, theatrical performances, and poetry readings were carefully organized to honor tradition while reinforcing the unity of the people. Augustus attended these events quietly, observing both the citizens and the performers, understanding the power of shared experience in strengthening social cohesion. He paid special attention to education and the intellectual life of Rome. Tutors, scholars, and students were encouraged to pursue knowledge in philosophy, rhetoric, history, and science. Augustus saw in education not only the cultivation of capable administrators and leaders, but also the shaping of citizens who understood their roles within a stable society. The libraries, schools, and academies flourished under his careful patronage. Meanwhile, Augustus remained vigilant regarding the provinces and borders. He received detailed reports on trade, military readiness, and local governance, often walking through these letters late into the night. He corresponded with governors, offering guidance and subtle warnings when needed. Roads, ports, and fortifications continued to expand, connecting distant territories to the heart of Rome. Each decision reinforced loyalty, efficiency, and communication, ensuring that the empire remained cohesive despite its vast size. In his personal life, Augustus remained composed and disciplined. His family, including Octavia, played roles that balanced political alliance with public appearance, reinforcing the stability and tradition he cultivated. Even as he engaged in the daily demands of rule, he made time for reflection and private study, maintaining the calm and measured approach that had carried him from boyhood to the pinnacle of power. The city settled into quiet by nightfall, lanterns glowing softly across the Forum, the Tiber, and the streets. Augustus stood once more on the balcony of the Palatine, gazing over the expanse of Rome. The citizens slept safely, soldiers patrolled diligently, and the heart of the empire beat steadily. He contemplated the day's events, the ongoing projects, and the reforms still underway, understanding that the work of governance was never complete. Yet there was satisfaction in the order, the culture, and the prosperity he had fostered. Augustus knew that Rome's greatness depended not only on victories and authority, but also on the careful weaving of social, cultural, and civic threads. The citizens, soldiers, and senators had come to trust his judgment and presence. The reforms he enacted, the buildings he restored, the festivals he supported, the first light of dawn painted the rooftops of Rome in soft gold as Augustus rose from his chamber. The city stirred gently beneath him, alive with movement, yet calm in a way that reflected the stability he had cultivated over decades. Streets were clean, fountains flowed steadily, and the hum of commerce, children, and soldiers moving in precise formations filled the air. Augustus observed it all quietly, aware that the peace of Rome was both fragile and extraordinary, and that each day was an opportunity to secure its enduring greatness. He began his morning by walking along the Palatine Hill, overlooking the Forum where senators and citizens gathered. The Senate, once a battlefield of intrigue and suspicion, now functioned with careful cooperation. Augustus greeted senators with subtle nods and brief conversations, his calm demeanor commanding respect without overt assertion of power. He had learned that influence was often more effective when felt rather than declared, and the people of Rome had come to trust in the measured guidance of their princeps. The streets were alive with ordinary life. Merchants displayed goods with pride, children played between the columns of public buildings, and citizens moved with a quiet confidence that reflected the security Augustus had established. Grain distributions were smooth, the marketplaces orderly, and even the veterans who had once campaigned at his side now walked the streets with a sense of dignity and purpose. Augustus paused occasionally to speak with citizens, offering reassurance or listening to concerns, letting them feel his presence as a guardian of both tradition and prosperity. Rome itself bore the tangible signs of his vision. Temples gleamed anew, public baths and theaters welcomed citizens, and aqueducts brought fresh water to every district. Roads stretched outward, connecting neighborhoods, forums, and distant provinces with efficiency and grandeur. Augustus moved through the city like a careful observer, taking note of each detail: a newly built bridge, a repaired fountain, the laughter of children in a restored courtyard. These small observations, accumulated over time, shaped policies and reforms, blending practicality with symbolism to strengthen the empire's fabric. Culture and learning flourished under his guidance. Augustus spent afternoons visiting libraries, workshops, and academies, engaging with scholars, poets, and artisans. He encouraged literature that celebrated Rome's achievements, philosophy that explored civic virtue, and art that reflected both grandeur and order. Public festivals were carefully organized, blending entertainment with reverence for history and tradition. Gladiators fought in arenas that were as much a demonstration of civic pride as martial skill, while poets recited works that reminded citizens of their shared heritage. Augustus understood that culture could bind people together as effectively as law or military strength. The provinces remained a priority, each distant city and territory tied to the heart of Rome through roads, ports, and fortified outposts. Augustus received letters and reports from governors, reviewing matters of trade, taxation, and local governance. He offered counsel with discretion, understanding that authority was most effective when combined with the perception of autonomy. The empire's stability depended not only on strong leadership but on the careful cultivation of loyalty, communication, and respect across its vast territories. Evening brought a quieter reflection. Augustus walked through the corridors of the palace, listening to the soft echo of footsteps and the distant hum of the city settling into night. Lanterns glimmered along the Forum and the Tiber, casting a calm glow on marble columns and fountains. Soldiers patrolled with steady rhythm, and citizens rested in homes built or restored under his guidance. Augustus paused on a balcony overlooking the city, contemplating the journey that had carried him from boyhood in a quiet villa to the master of the Roman world. The achievements of decades unfolded in his mind: roads that linked distant provinces, temples that honored the gods and heritage of Rome, public buildings that encouraged civic pride, and reforms that strengthened families, morals, and social cohesion. He had watched over battles, witnessed betrayal, and learned the intricacies of power, and yet he had tempered authority with patience and discretion. The empire thrived not merely because of conquest, but because of governance, culture, and the careful cultivation of loyalty and order. As night deepened, Augustus reflected on the legacy he had begun to create. Rome's citizens, soldiers, and senators had come to trust him, not merely as a ruler but as a steward of their city and its traditions. His laws, infrastructure, and cultural initiatives ensured that every aspect of life was intertwined with the stability of the state. Every festival, every library, every restored aqueduct was a thread in the tapestry of Rome's enduring greatness. The empire stretched far beyond the Tiber, yet each corner felt connected to the heart of the city through roads, commerce, and the vision of Augustus. Provinces thrived under careful oversight, cities grew in prosperity, and Rome itself became a beacon of civilization, a place where culture, governance, and social stability coexisted in harmony. Augustus walked among his people in thought, imagining generations yet to come, and understanding that the work of a ruler was eternal, shaped by foresight, patience, and care. In the stillness of the night, the city slept under his watch. Lanterns flickered along streets, soldiers stood vigilant, and the Tiber reflected the moonlight like a silver thread weaving through the heart of the empire. Augustus stood on his balcony, silent and composed, reflecting on the balance he had struck between power and moderation, authority and humility, conquest and governance. Rome had become a living testament to his vision, a golden age nurtured through decades of effort and careful planning. The young boy who had once observed Caesar's campaigns and Antony's mistakes, who had studied scrolls in quiet rooms and endured the challenges of war and politics, had grown into the architect of a civilization. The empire he had built was not merely vast, but enduring, founded on law, culture, loyalty, and foresight. Augustus understood that his life's work would outlive him, shaping generations of citizens and rulers, leaving behind a Rome that was prosperous, stable, and resplendent in its achievements. The city settled into deep quiet, and Augustus remained on the balcony, gazing at the illuminated streets and the gentle flow of the Tiber. The age of Augustus, his golden age of Rome, had come to full bloom, not in loud proclamations or displays of force, but in the calm, enduring authority of a ruler who had understood the delicate art of governance, the power of culture, and the responsibility of leadership. The empire slept, secure and flourishing, under the watchful eye of Augustus, and the legacy of his reign stretched far beyond the horizon, timeless and unbroken.